Hi everybody, and welcome back to school after our Easter holiday. I hope you've had a really good break and have enjoyed some of the sunshine that we've had over the 2-week holiday, and that you're ready now to come back to school and ready to start back with our learning. And it's a really important term, our summer term. It's that term where all of the learning we've done so far we build on, and we make sure that we're all ready to move into our next year group at the end of this term. So particularly important for our year sixes, who are going to be moving on at the end of this term to their secondary schools in September. Everything that they do now, just like if you're in year 2 or year 3 or 4, any of our year groups, is about getting ready for that next year group where that learning becomes a little bit more challenging. So I hope you can continue with making such good progress that you have done so far this year, despite all the things that have happened, and where we've had people having to work at home or online. But hopefully everybody can continue to make really good progress and work really hard to make sure we have a great term ahead of us. This term, our value that we're going to be thinking about in our assemblies and in all that we do across the school is responsibility. So we've thought about this earlier in the year, and we think about it all the time, really. But this term is the second time in the year where we start to think about what that actually means. What are we if we are a responsible learner? Our poster, as always, around the school, the poster helps us to remind us what things we need to think about. It talks about making the right behaviour choices, about having good learning behaviours, asking good questions, doing deeper thinking, setting ourselves those challenges, about joining in, about recognising when something's worked and when something hasn't worked so well, and making different choices to try and put that right. It encourages us to think about what we say, about solving problems, and making sure that when we ask for help at the right times, and that reminds us of the responsibility that we all have to take care of each other. And as we get older, and we've learned more and we know more, then we have to take more responsibility about how we behave, about the things we say, and about the choices that we make. And we have to think not just about how we feel, but we need to think about how other people might feel by the choices we make. If we were somebody who says unkind things or does unkind things to other people, who disturbs them when they're trying to get on with their learning or when they're playing a game together, who doesn't play fairly, if we're somebody who annoys those other people, then other people won't want to be friends with us if we behave like that. And they may behave like that back to us. They may be rude and unkind and say unkind things if that's how we are choosing to behave. If we can take care of each other, if we can be kind, we can share, we can think about what we're saying, so we don't upset other people. If we can let other people get on with their learning and the things they're doing, then actually they will probably be the same to us. So it will be a much happier place. And that responsibility is each of ours. So really important that we remember that. Take that responsibility for the choices that we make. I wanted to tell you a story this afternoon about from a famous fable, a story that you might have heard before, about the boy who cried wolf. And the story is about a boy who lived in a village a long way away from here, but up at the base of the mountains. And the village was a very quiet village. Most people spent their time in the village farming, growing crops, looking after animals. Nothing really ever happened very fast. And the boy I want to tell you about used to help his father a lot with the farming. He used to help with the planting of the crops and then looking after them and harvesting them. He used to help looking after the sheep in the fields that were up at the base of the mountain. And that's where the story I want to tell you starts from. One of the problems with having sheep in a mountain area was that, particularly around the time of the year when the sheep were going to have their lambs, wolves used to come down from the mountains to try to catch the lambs and eat them for their dinner. So the father and his son at this time of year would pack up a parcel of food and some drink. They would take up some really warm clothing and blankets, and they would walk up into the fields at the beginning of night time, late in the evening. And they would sit by an old stone wall under a tree, and they would keep a watch on the sheep. If they saw a wolf coming down from the mountains, they would make some noise, they would throw some stones, and they would scare him off so that he wouldn't be able to pinch any of the sheep or the lambs. And when the boy went up with his father, he quite enjoyed his evenings. They just spent time chatting together. His father would tell him stories. They'd play games like throwing stones, setting up a target and throwing stones. And the time seemed to pass quite quickly, and they enjoyed each other's company. But as time went on and the young boy got older, soon it became a time where he was able to go up to keep an eye on the sheep on his own. And he would pack up his stuff, his food, his water, his warm blankets, and he would trundle up onto the fields at the bottom of the mountain on his own. And he knew what to do, how to look after himself, because his father had taught him. He knew what to do if a wolf was coming. He saw a wolf coming down from the hillsides, the mountainsides, and he could do that quite safely on his own. Well, one night when he was up there on his own, he didn't have his dad to talk to. He didn't have his father to tell him stories. He'd been throwing stones like he used to at the old tree with his dad to see who could hit the tree the most times. But it wasn't much fun on his own. And as the night wore on, he got a bit bored. He ran out of things to do. He'd thrown stones, he'd counted the sheep again and again, he'd walked around the field, and he was getting bored. I know, he thought, I know what I'll do. This will cause some excitement. He thought, if I pretend that there's a wolf coming down, and I run down into the village shouting, there's a wolf coming, then everybody will come up and help me. And that's what he did. He ran down from the village as fast as he could, shouting at the top of his voice, wolf, wolf, there's wolves coming down to catch the sheep. And as he ran into the village, his voice carried through to the houses, and the farmers and their families could hear him, who were woken up in the middle of the night with the shouting. They grabbed their farm tools, their spades, their forks, and they started to put their clothes on and started to run up towards the mountainside to catch the wolf. Well, when they got to the mountainside and to the field where the sheep were, they didn't see a wolf. There wasn't one. They looked at the boy and said, well, where is the wolf? You've woken everybody up in the village. We're all sleeping, and now we're up here ready to help you. Where's the wolf? And the boy couldn't help but have a little smile. He said, was just tricking you. Well, the farmers and their families were furious. Tricking us in the middle of the night? They were so cross they couldn't talk to him. They went back to their beds. The boy went back to the field, and watched for the rest of the night. Well, the next time he was up in the fields, the same thing happened. He got bored again. He'd played his games, he'd thrown his stones. No wolves had come down. There was nothing to do. He was bored. So he thought, I know, I'll do it again. That was quite funny watching everybody get up. So he raced down to the village, again shouting, wolf, wolf, wolves are in the fields with the sheep. Everybody woke up from their beds, put their clothes on again, grabbed their spades and their forks and their farm equipment, chased up to the fields to try and capture the wolf. And again, when they got there, there was no wolf. And the boy smiled and said, I got you again. I can't believe you fell for it twice. Well, this went on another 2 or 3 times, and the villagers were getting more and more cross with him. In fact, actually, the last time he did it, hardly anybody went up to the fields. Then one night, when he was up there watching the sheep, and it was dark, and the moonlight lit the hillside, he could see the shadow of some wolves coming down to the fields. There was too many of them, he thought, for him to deal with. He couldn't throw stones that quickly to get rid of them all and scare them all off. So he did run down to the village shouting, there really is a wolf, there is a wolf, the wolves are coming into the field with the sheep. People woke in their beds. They heard his shouting and they rolled over and went back to sleep. Well, in the morning, you can imagine, the wolves had come down and they had stolen lots and lots of the lambs for their food. The farmers were furious. All their hard work in looking after the sheep and looking after the new lambs had gone to waste. The wolves had had them. There would be no food for the people in the village. And the boy, well, you can imagine, they weren't very kind to him. They were very, very fed up and very, very annoyed. But the boy learnt his lesson. He needed to take responsibility for what he'd done. He needed to take responsibility for the choices he'd made. And at first it seemed like fun, but actually he needed to think how it made other people feel. And the result in the end was disastrous. So hopefully, whenever you are doing things, you can think about what you say, you can think about how you say it, you can think about what you do, and you can think about how you're treating other people and how they may be thinking, what they may be thinking about you. So responsibility is something that we all need to take for ourselves and make those right choices. Have a great first week back at school. It's lovely to see everybody here. We've still got that responsibility to follow the rules in school, making sure that we're keeping ourselves safe, washing our hands, keeping our spaces, staying in our bubbles, so that we keep each other safe. Have a great first week.